What Happens at Night by Thomas Alexander. Bet you never met a spirit before. At least, not what you think a spirit is. Truth is, angels and demons don't exist any more than whatever your dog believes you're doing in the bathroom when you shut the door. People just make that stuff up to feel better about the truth. And the funny thing about the truth? It's a hell of a lot scarier than a pitchfork or a halo. They say an eye for an eye. They say God's watching. Well, if he is, he's got a real hands-off management style. Me? I'm the one who actually punches the cosmic clock. I guess you could call me a bounty hunter. But I ain't looking for bail jumpers or some kid who skipped out on a speeding ticket. My assignments, well, they're of grave importance. But let's get one thing straight, buddy. I don't handle the small-time misery. I don't make you stub your toe on the coffee table or send a bird to tap, tap, tap on your window at 5 in the morning just to ruin your beauty sleep. I'm the shadow you see out of the corner of your eye when you know you've done something you can't take back. I'm the cold spot in the room that doesn't go away when you turn up the heat. I'm the repo man for the soul. And when your name finally hits my list, well, I don't just knock. I come to collect. Settle in. We've got a long drive ahead.
Tonight's first contestant is a real piece of shit. I don't say that often, but anyone who can hit their own mother has a special place in my heart. There's a certain kind of quiet you only find at 3 in the morning. It's not the peaceful kind. It's the heavy, thick silence that sits on your chest while the rest of the world is dreaming. Most people don't see what moves in those shadows. But from the driver's seat of a black Mustang with a long road ahead, you see everything. You see the debts that have been growing in the dark. Everyone's got a tab. Most folks pay a little here and there. A bit of honesty, a grain of kindness. But then there are the high-profile cases. The ones who spend years racking up a debt they think they're too mean or too loved to ever have to pay. They think the bill is never coming.
Take this house right here. Looks normal enough from the curb. But inside, there's a kid named Leo. 17 years old, full of spit and vinegar, and like I said, a real piece of work. He spent his days convinced the world was his personal punching bag. Specifically, his mother. Leo didn't just have a temper, he had a hobby. He liked to see how far he could push a woman who'd spent her whole life trying to keep him upright. He'd break her things, he'd break her spirit, and every once in a while, he'd leave a mark that didn't wash off with soap and water. He thought he was the king of this drafty little castle. He figured her love was an infinite line of credit. He was wrong. Because even unconditional love has a limit, and Leo was about to hit it at 60 miles an hour. It started on a Tuesday. Leo was in the kitchen, mid-rant because the cable was out, when his mother walked in. She wasn't alone. Behind her stood a man, tall, draped in a suit so black it seemed to swallow the kitchen light. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, hands at his sides, watching. Leo did what Leo does. He puffed out his chest. He screamed. He called the man every name in the book. He even tried to shoulder check him on the way to the fridge. But the man didn't move. He didn't flinch. He didn't even acknowledge Leo was in the room. He just looked at Leo's mother, and for the first time in years, she looked peaceful. She didn't look at her son. She didn't flinch at his shouting. She just went about her evening like the monster in the room had suddenly turned into a ghost. Leo didn't sleep that night. He sat up, gripping a baseball bat, waiting for the stranger to try something. But there was only silence. The next morning, the house was empty. No breakfast on the stove. No mother. No man. Leo went to school, fuming, planning the speech he was going to give her about bringing freaks into his house. But when he got home, the silence was still there. He ran upstairs, checked her room, nothing. He checked the basement, nothing. He was halfway through calling the cops to report a kidnapping when he walked into the living room. There he was, the man in black, sitting in the living room, staring at the blank television. Leo lost it. He swung the bat. He screamed until his throat was raw. He threatened to kill him, to bury him, to burn the house down. And the man? He just sat there. He didn't look up. He didn't blink. He treated Leo like a flickering light bulb. Annoying, maybe, but ultimately irrelevant. The cops came, of course. Leo was hysterical, pointing at the chair, claiming his mother had been snatched. But when the officers looked, the man was gone. They looked at Leo, the kid they'd visited a dozen times for domestic calls, and they didn't see a victim. They saw a kid who'd finally snapped. They left with a warning, and as soon as the door clicked shut, the man didn't come back. Not for 3 days. For 3 days, Leo was alone. No mother, no stranger, just the mounting dread of a house that felt like it was shrinking. He started to realize that without his mother to terrorize, he didn't really know who he was. He was a predator with no prey, starving in the dark. He convinced himself the man had killed her. He convinced himself he was the hero of the story, the grieving son. Then, on the 4th night, the man in black came back. Leo was in the kitchen, nursing a glass of water when he turned around, and there he was. This time he wasn't sitting, he was looming. The air in the room turned cold, the kind of cold that gets inside your bones and stays there. Leo tried to back away, but his legs wouldn't work. He tried to scream, but his lungs felt like they were filled with wet sand. He realized then that he was going to call the cops one last time. He was going to tell them the killer was right here. He was going to get his revenge. The sirens approached, blue and red lights strobing against the kitchen wallpaper. Leo watched the man, waiting for him to run, waiting for him to vanish. But the man just stood there, watching Leo with eyes that weren't eyes at all, just 2 holes in the fabric of the world. The front door kicked open. The officers didn't look behind Leo. They looked at the floor. They looked at the walls. They looked at the long, dried blood stains on the carpet from a year ago that Leo had forgotten to scrub. They looked at the empty house, and then they looked at Leo, who was standing alone in a kitchen that hadn't seen a guest in years. There was no man in black. There was no mother. There was only a boy with a history of violence and a story that didn't make a lick of sense. As they clicked the cuffs onto his wrists, Leo screamed for his mom. He screamed for the man to show himself, but the man was already gone, and so was she.
He was hauled out into the night, headed for a cell where the only thing he'd have to talk to for the next 20 years was the silence he'd spent his whole life creating. You see,
karma doesn't always need a smoking gun. Sometimes it just needs a bad reputation and a room with no one in it. Leo wanted to be the center of attention. Well, now he's got it. Every cop, every judge, and every inmate is going to be looking at him. And the only person who could have told the truth, well, she's finally got some peace and quiet. They say a mother's love is unconditional, and maybe it is. She gave him exactly what he deserved. She left him with nothing but himself. I've got more miles to cover before the sun comes up, and in my business, silence is the one debt that never stops collecting. Sleep tight.